Look, here's my family all ready to make cabbage rolls. Nobody wants to be on videos. Look at my mom though. Hey, look, she even brought her apron.
Oh, don't you dare.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year. Okay, that's it. From the peanut gallery, they're going to go sit on the couch and stay out of the kitchen. Okay, Christmas Eve day, and we're at my lovely sister's house.
Cheers.
She's got a beautiful tree here, beautiful house, all the gifts waiting to be unwrapped, and I've been told that I have to get the star of the show in the video. This is Oakley. See, Oakley's very interested in making cooking videos, right, Oakley? Don't get up. Anyway, so we are going to be making some cabbage rolls today. We'll come back. All right, this is sort of an annual thing with our family to make cabbage rolls. Not necessarily at Christmas time, but when we get together as a family during the winter months. Since my sister and my parents in particular like my cabbage rolls, I usually make a pretty big batch of them. So we are just about to start doing that production, and we figured that we would take a video of how we make cabbage rolls while we're at it. So I'll just go over a quick ingredient listing, and then we will break it down by weights and measures, and we'll take you through the process of making a big batch of cabbage rolls. And when I mean a big batch, we're probably talking between 60 and 80 rolls by the end of it. So this recipe is definitely scalable. So we're making, as I mentioned, between 60 and 80 rolls, and it really depends on the size of the cabbage leaves you have once you break the cabbage down. And it also depends on how much fill you put into the cabbage rolls. So we're going to say approximately between 60 and 80. We'll get a count at the end of this video, but for now that's what we're planning on, about 60 to 80 rolls. So to do that, and again this recipe is going to be scalable, so we have about 10 pounds of ground beef here alone. So if you wanted to do this for 1 pound of ground beef, you can just scale the recipe down. So we have 10 pounds of ground beef, which is roughly, well, I'm going to say it's 2.4 kilos per package. So roughly 10 pounds of beef. We've got 2 pounds, or let me see what it says here, 0.94 kilograms of ground pork. We have got 4 onions, regular cooking onions, and 2 Vidalia onions. We've got 1 clove of, or 1 head of garlic. We're probably going to use a couple of cloves of that. We've got some caraway seeds. I like caraway. Again, this is an optional ingredient. If you want to put caraway in, you can. Some people don't like caraway, so you can leave that out. And we've got an assortment of tomato products. Usually we make quite a bit of sauce, because you'll see when I pack these, we like to actually have some additional sauce on the side. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So we've got tomato juice, we've got diced tomatoes, we've got crushed tomatoes, and as a backup we've got some marinara sauce here if required. If we don't have enough sauce between these ingredients, we'll add the marinara sauce. The tomato sauce is a bit of a sweet and sour base to it, so we've got brown sugar and balsamic vinegar to make that happen. If you didn't want to use vinegar, you could use something like lemon juice for the sour part, so that's an option as well. We definitely need some rice. We're going to cook this rice, and this is just regular Uncle Ben's converted just to white rice, but you could use something like a basmati rice in here as well. We're going to be cooking this in beef stock, so we get a little bit more flavor into the rice. We want to have a nice beefy tasting cabbage roll. And again, the star of the show is cabbage. So we've got actually 3 heads of cabbage. We're going to start with 2. And these are just regular cabbages, but you could do this with a Savoy cabbage if you wanted to. You could actually even do it with a Napa cabbage if you wanted to, but we're just using regular green cabbage. So those are the ingredients. So we will start the process by getting the rice cooked. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we want to get our rice cooked. So again, we've just got a long grain rice here. So we're going to do 1 part of rice to 2 parts of stock. So we've got 3 cups here of rice total, and we're going to make up 6 cups total of stock and probably a little bit of water. All right, we've got our rice on the stove. So again, we've got 2 cups of rice, we've got 6 cups of broth and water. So we've got 4 cups of beef broth and 2 cups of just tap water in here. We're going to bring this to a boil, then turn it down to a simmer. We're going to simmer it for about 18 minutes or so until the rice is tender, but we don't want to make sure that it's not really overcooked and mushy. So probably about 18 minutes, and then we're done. We're going to take it off the heat and spread it onto some baking sheets and let it cool. All right, so the next thing we're going to do are the the onions that we're going to saute with the caraway seeds. So I've got 4 onions here, and we are just going to peel these, and then we're going to dice these up. So I'm going to give you a quantity. So we have 4 onions total. We've got 2 Vidalia onions, and we've got 2 regular cooking onions. So all we're going to do is just dice these up with a nice sharp knife. Not too large of a dice. Alright, we'll proceed with the remaining 3 onions, and we'll give you a weight and cup measurement. Alright, the onions are all diced. We have now about 5 cups of onions diced, and that's about 750 grams. So next we'll be on to the garlic. So we'll get this peeled, and we'll get it separated into cloves. Alright, we've got our garlic peeled, and we're going to be using 4 cloves of garlic for this recipe. So all we're going to do is we're going to smash it and chop it. Now, you could use a garlic press for this if you wanted to, or if you're really lazy, you could buy the already pureed garlic in bottles, or you could buy the frozen garlic. Right, Andrea?
Right, Dave.
So, I will take the time to chop this by hand. Doesn't take too long. And I'll give you a quick weight measurement. Doesn't have to be too fine. Yes, I can hear my sister talking in the background. She should have said, "Yes, chef."
Yes, chef.
See? She hasn't been well trained. Alright, garlic's chopped. So we'll just pile it on top of the onions. So we've got about 10 grams total weight of chopped garlic for the weight measurement. Alright, on to the next step. Okay, our rice is cooked. So we're just going to move this onto a baking sheet to let it cool. It cools a little more quickly if you spread it out. So we're going to do that. This is going to be mixed obviously with the beef. The beef is going to be raw. So you don't want this to be boiling hot when you add it to the beef. So, it smells great. Smell the beef stock in it. I didn't season the rice because we're going to season the beef mixture with salt and pepper. Obviously we're going to be adding the onions and the caraway to that as well, so we'll worry about the seasoning later. Anyway, the rice is done. We'll let it cool. You could stick that in the fridge if you wanted. You could stick it out in a cold garage if you wanted. Regardless, it's got to be cold when you add it to the beef, or room temperature when you add it to the beef. Okay, one ingredient I didn't mention at the start was that we're going to need something to saute the onions and garlic in. So I've just got a bit of light olive oil here, and we've got the pan heating over medium-high heat. So we're just about to add our onions and garlic in. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we're just going to cook these onions probably for about 10 minutes or so, just until they're softened. We don't want to put a lot of color on them, so you're going to be just stirring constantly and more sweating them down than sauteing with color. So we'll bring you back when those are done. Here's my OCD sister cleaning up after me. because I've dropped a few little bits of onion on the floor, so she's furiously, feverishly cleaning up after me as I cook. All right.
Yes, chef.
Back to the onions. All right, we've been sweating the onions down for about 5 minutes or so. We're just about to add our caraway seeds, so we'll probably do about at least a tablespoon of caraway. I hate these little packages. Maybe we'll do one more. There'll be 2 tablespoons of caraway total. And we'll just cook those for an additional 5 minutes. All right, while the onions are cooking away, we've put a very large pot of water on the stove to boil, and we are going to be using that to blanch our cabbage leaves. So we'll bring you back when those cabbages are ready to be blanched. All right, the onions are now sauteed fully, so we're just going to put them on a baking sheet to cool like we did with the rice. So we'll just scrape those out. We'll let those cool down. They look and smell great. So those are ready to go, mixed in with the beef and the pork and the rice. At the next step. Alright, we're just about to prepare the cabbage, so here's what we do for that. Alright, so we've got 3 large cabbages, and all we want to do is really trim the core end. Don't listen to the peanut gallery in the background laughing at me. So we're just going to cut a big square in the bottom of the core, fairly deep, carefully. Oh geez. Alright, I'm going to trim off some of those outer leaves, the scabby ones. Okay, now for the next step, you need a pretty sturdy countertop. I'm going to use my kitchen steel, and we're going to use this big one to pierce this in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out in the garage, on the garage floor, and I'm going to bang this steel into the center of this cabbage. I'll be back. Okay, so we've prepared the cabbage, we've brought it out in the garage, and we've used our kitchen steel to basically make a cabbage kebab. And we're going to take this over to the water and blanch it. I'll take the camera over there and show you how we're going to do that. Alright, so now you'll see the method behind doing the steel in the cabbage trick. So the water has come to a boil, so we're in the process of blanching our cabbage. So this allows us to blanch sort of 1 or 2 leaves at a time. So here's what I do. So as you can see, we'll just sort of pull off a couple leaves at a time. And once those are softened, we'll move them into our water bath to cool. So that's the process. So we need about between 60 and 80 good leaves, because that's the expected amount of cabbage rolls we're making. Alright, so now you'll see the method behind doing the steel in the cabbage trick. So the water has come to a boil, so we're in the process of blanching our cabbage. So this allows us to blanch sort of 1 or 2 leaves at a time. So here's what I do. So as you can see, we'll just sort of pull off a couple leaves at a time. And once those are softened, we'll move them into our water bath to cool. So that's the process. So we need about between 60 and 80 good leaves, because that's the expected amount of cabbage rolls we're making. Alright, there's our first 2 cabbage leaves done, so we'll just continue the process. And we'll peel the leaves off. There we go, there's the next set. Just drop that down. Blanch that for a little longer, and then we'll move it back into the ice bath. Okay, so the leaves have been separated from the 3 cabbage heads and blanched, so we're going to move on to the next step, which is making the sweet and sour tomato sauce to go with these. Okay, so we're just about to start our tomato sauce, and as mentioned, we're going to use tomato juice, we're going to use crushed tomatoes, we're going to use diced tomatoes, and we're going to use some marinara sauce. This could be a canned spaghetti sauce or a jarred spaghetti sauce. Anyway, we're just going to go ahead and use that. We don't want to make too thick of a sauce. You want it to be a little bit more liquidy than what a normal pasta sauce would be. That's why we're using the tomato juice. So we're going to go ahead and put that in the pot, and we'll bring that up to a simmer, and then we will make it into a sweet and sour sauce by the addition of balsamic and brown sugar. Okay, we're on to the next step, which is the mixing of the ground beef, the ground pork, the onions, the rice, together with some seasonings. We're also going to do an optional addition of some eggs to help to bind this together a little bit, and I'm saying optional. If you want a looser mix inside your cabbage rolls, you don't need to add the eggs in, but I'm going to add the eggs in. So I'm going to add 6 eggs. Okay, we're going to add next, we're going to add in that cooked rice. You can see I've got a very large bowl. It's my largest bowl. So we'll add that rice in. We'll start with about 3/4 of it, and we'll decide whether we need to add any more than that. We'll add our rice and caraway mixture in. Get all that in there. Okay. We're going to add some salt and pepper at this point. Kosher salt. Maybe a couple of teaspoons. And we'll get the pepper mill. And we'll just, I like lots of pepper, so we'll just give it a generous amount of pepper. Okay. And we'll mix all this well to combine, and we'll take a look at the rice. If we feel we need to add more rice, we'll add more rice. If not, we'll just leave it where it's at. All right, we'll come back once it's combined. Okay, we've got the ground beef, pork, rice, and onion mixture done, and we're just about getting ready to roll some cabbage rolls. So I thought I'd do a few for you on camera. So we'll just move the camera over here so you can see the cutting board. And I'll wander around the other side here. Let me zoom you in a little bit. All right. So you may find that the larger cabbage leaves need to be trimmed slightly of the stem. So I've just got a small paring knife handy, and we're just going to trim out that stem at the bottom. And discard that. I've also got a bowl of water here handy, and this is just to keep the rice from sticking to your hands, because I'm going to be using my hands just to portion the rice directly in the cabbage. So I'm going to take a small handful of the rice mixture. Okay, and again, the size of the mix is going to be dependent on the size of the leaf. So we're just going to put that directly in the center of the cabbage. We're going to tuck the ends in, and then we're going to roll it tightly. Okay, into a nice roll. So it looks something like that, and we'll set it aside. We'll move to the next one, and we'll get our paring knife. We'll trim out that hard stem. Discard that, flip it over, get your portion of meat. If you're worried about doing a same size portion all the time, you can use an ice cream scoop to do that. Fold the ends in, again tuck it, Roll it over. And again, another nice roll. We'll do one more. Flip it over. It's nice large size cabbage leaves. So put your mix in. Fold the ends over. Again, roll it up tightly. Okay, set it aside. All right, so we have about another 80 to do. We'll be back. Gonna call some reinforcements in, Mom and Dad. Okay, so our sauce has been simmering for about a half an hour or so. We've just added now some brown sugar and some balsamic vinegar. So as far as brown sugar is concerned, we've added about 1/4 cup so far, and we've added about 3 tablespoons of vinegar. So really this is to taste. So I usually get my mom to taste this, and she decides whether it's sweet enough or whether it's sour enough. So it's really going to come down to your taste, so I can't be any more specific than that. I did season this with a little bit of salt and pepper as well. And again, like I said, we're going to have a taste now and again. We're going to let it simmer, make sure that brown sugar distributes through there perfectly. And then we'll taste it for sweetness and for sourness. When it's good to go, we'll move on to the next step. So we've got our cabbage rolls ready to go over here into our casserole pan. We've got a foil casserole, and we've got an old cast iron enamel casserole we're going to use for this. So we're going to start layering these shortly, just waiting for that sauce to finish. We managed only to get about 50 cabbage rolls. We did have some of the beef mixture left over, and what we're going to do with that, I mean, technically you can make more cabbage rolls if you had another cabbage, but what we did is we popped it in the freezer, and my sister and my mother are going to divide it up, and I think they've decided that they're going to make some stuffed peppers out of it. So pretty much the same mixture for stuffed peppers. Again, you could use it for stuffed peppers. You could actually make it into a meatloaf if you wanted to. But anyway, it'll get used up. So like I said, we got about 50 cabbage rolls, so we'll get those in the casserole shortly. This is OCD doing dishes again. So the kitchen, there you go. Say hello.
Oh, no.
There you go. So yes, the kitchen is still pretty clean considering we've just done all this work on the cabbage rolls. Okay, we're finally ready to build. So we've got a couple of pans here that we've just actually put some Pam in the bottom so it doesn't stick too badly. And what I like to do is, I've got my tomato sauce over here, so we're just going to add a little bit of tomato sauce to the bottom of the pan first, just to cover the bottom of the pan, otherwise the cabbage rolls will burn and stick to the bottom. So we'll just add some tomato sauce. And what I like to do is those old cores of cabbage that I had saved, I just like to shred those up a little bit and put a little bit of cabbage in the bottom, just for a little extra flavor. So we'll just do that. It's a good use of the cabbage cores as well. All right, and we'll start laying in our cabbage rolls. Obviously seam side down. We don't want these unrolling as they bake, so just make sure they're seam side down. Okay. What we'll try to do is we'll try to get 2 layers in here. Don't want to pack them in too tight. Let me get one more small one here in the end. All right. We'll do a little bit more cabbage bits, but we'll put the tomato sauce on first. So again, right over the top. Move this pan a little closer. See if you're still in frame here. You can see that. Alright, so continue on with the tomato sauce. Just want to make sure that they're all covered. Okay. A few more of those little cabbage scraps in here, just to use them up. Okay. And on to the next layer.
It's pretty amazing to be back again so soon, especially at final tables, since it took me like forever to make the first one. I know these young guys, they're really good. They talk over constantly for data measurements. So we have to sort of do the same thing to see what's going on. They talk to some of the other older guys like myself, Carl Center, and they're really doing some good advice. I think it's happening more where we're trying to talk to each other and help each other improve.
All right. And final layer of sauce. So we have the oven preheating to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to pop the cover on this, and we're going to bake these for approximately 2 hours. And obviously we'll check them to make sure that the cabbage is tender. I usually like to uncover them for the last 15 minutes or so to get a little bit of color to the top of the tomato sauce. But there's a completed casserole. We'll work on the next foil pan. So that will go in the oven with the cover on initially at 375 for 2 hours. Alright, it's been about 2.5 hours or so, and we've had them covered for pretty much the most of the time, and then just uncover them towards the end. And they're looking pretty good. So this is the number 1 pan of 2. So what we do now is we got these little foil containers over here that we now transfer them into. And again, I've got some extra sauce that I usually put on the bottom of those foils before we load in the cabbage rolls. So that's what we're going to do now. The important task of divvying all these out has begun, and I've got my mom and my sister fighting over them. So anyway, there's the first 25 that are in pans, and we've got the other tray that has about 25 as well, or maybe slightly more. So anyway, they've got them divided out, and soon to go in the fridge, and then eventually in the freezer for future meals. We'll be back. All right, the second batch is done, so we've got another 26 cabbage rolls all packaged up and ready to go. So that's it. So hopefully the family enjoys them. I think they're going to probably try some. There's Mum and Andrea are basically the recipients of these cabbage rolls. So hopefully they enjoy them. I know they're going to probably keep a few out for the next couple of days. Well, they're probably not obviously for tomorrow, but they'll probably have some on the 26th, the day after Christmas, maybe for lunch or for dinner. And the rest of them will be frozen and eaten later on. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.